Hello there, welcome to ITV News Meridian in the Thames Valley.
Tonight's headlines and a special investigation on children and long COVID.
It's like your world just comes crashing down.
It just felt uncontrollable. I've never felt that sort of pain before.
Once fit and healthy, now unable to walk unaided and living in pain. The lasting effect of the virus on children and their families.
She suffers daily, she suffers every day, but she's so brave.
Also tonight, the campaign to reopen the Cowley branch line in Oxford, 60 years on from the Beeching report and the closure of many stations and lines.
And getting tough on graffiti, a ban on laughing gas and quicker police responses. The PM's promise on antisocial behaviour, but how will it work?
Good evening. Thousands of children who were once healthy and active are struggling with crippling pain and missing out on their education, living with long COVID.
Well, tonight, ITV News Meridian, in an exclusive report, tells how some children are now registered as disabled by a virus that parents thought was mild. Here's what the government said in the pandemic with the then Deputy Chief Medical Officer Jonathan Van Tam.
The vast majority of confirmed infections in children, which are really extremely mild compared to the illness suffered by adults. So we do think, to conclude, we think children experience mild disease.
So it was thought that COVID was not serious in children, but figures show that last year 20,000 young people were hospitalised. There are possibly around 70,000 children living with long COVID. Could be higher.
Well, tonight, Stacey Paul, in the first of her series, speaks to some of the children affected and hears about the devastating impact it's having on their families.
She was always happy, always jolly, bouncing around, absolutely full of energy.
Hannah Collins was a 13-year-old girl living life to the full.
Just happy in every aspect of her life.
But then she got COVID.
She kept complaining that she'd got pins and needles all over her body and her legs had gone ice cold. So they were just so cold to touch. And then it was that point then that she stopped being able to move her legs.
Hannah was rushed to hospital, but they had no idea why her legs had been so badly affected. A terrifying time for the whole family.
It was just... words don't say, it's just... It's like your world just comes crashing down. There were no answers for anything. It was just like... I've just been thrown into this and I didn't know what to do.
Hannah was also in agony, stabbing pains constantly in her legs, so extreme no one could touch her, and doctors remained baffled.
It was so scary because obviously instantly in your head you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is this? What is happening here? And will she ever walk again? You just want doctors to be able to help. You just want somebody to say, right, this is what we're going to do and this is how you can improve it. But there's nobody that can actually say, right, you need to do this and this will help.
So with no answers or explanation, Hannah was released from hospital in a wheelchair, in terrible pain and with crippling fatigue. And over a year later, she is still not recovered.
It's just nothing like you can ever think. Like, I just had no idea until it was actually happening.
But your legs are still really sensitive to touch, really painful. So doing everyday tasks just hurts?
Yeah, like even just going into the kitchen to get a drink, I think, can I really be bothered almost? It almost doesn't feel like my body anymore. It's just not me.
Long COVID has taken away everything in life that she enjoyed, and she has missed over a year of education. School obviously is really difficult.
Yeah.
How much can you manage?
On the better days, lunch and a lesson, then that's twice a week.
Hannah is determined that one day she will get back to full-time education, but watching your child go through this is torture as a parent.
She suffers daily. She suffers every day, but she's so brave.
Sadly, there are thousands of children just like Hannah whose lives have been destroyed by COVID. Emily was just 9 when she was infected.
A couple of days before Emily became ill, she was swimming lengths of our local swimming pool. She was absolutely fine. There was nothing wrong with Emily. Now she's registered as disabled, has a blue badge, and if we go out for a significant period of time, she spends her day in a wheelchair.
Just like Hannah, Emily suddenly developed terrible pains in her legs. She was rushed to hospital and spent 2 weeks undergoing tests. But again, doctors could provide no explanation and no treatment.
It's been a living nightmare, to be fair, yeah.
It just felt uncontrollable. I've never felt that sort of pain before.
I think seeing Emily go from being a positive, happy, active, normal 9-year-old to being this little girl who can't move and is in constant pain, and not being able to help her and reaching out for help and not getting the help makes you feel like a bit of a failure as a parent. It's been a horror story.
6 months after she lost the use of her legs, Emily's parents realised she was not going to recover as quickly as they hoped. Everyday life was impossible. They had another daughter and both worked, so they applied for her to be registered as disabled.
The act alone of applying for help for Emily, from the point of view of getting her recognised as disabled, was heartbreaking. We were hoping she would just get her strength back. That hasn't happened. Emily is still dealing with mobility issues, is her main thing. Her mental health has definitely suffered. And the effect it's had on us as a family has obviously had an impact on her as well.
Emily has endured so much, and 14 months on, it's still a daily struggle.
Managing the pain and the tiredness, but also not being able to see my friends every single day, all the time, because I'm quite a social person and I don't like being by myself, because being by myself makes more negative thoughts in my mind and upsets me a lot.
Do you feel sad since you've had it?
Yeah, I have quite a bit of depression and anxiety and anger and all that sort of thing.
But despite that, Emily has returned to school, bravely managing her mobility problems, fatigue and terrible brain fog that comes with long COVID.
I can't think of things straight and it all comes around in a weird muddle and a mess because I can't think of it all straight on and straight here.
Long COVID is the worst experience of my life. I went through a really, really dark period of time where I just felt helpless. I can't do anything to help you. I can't give you any medicine to make you better. I can't wave a magic wand. And that's what you want to do as a parent. You want to help. And I still can't do anything. She's still not better. And we're like 14 months on now and you're still battling and you're still trying to fix it and we can't. And that's been horrendous.
It's just life-changing. I thought I was fine, I just had a sniff and a cold, but then actually I've become like this, so I just be careful.
There are many children out there who are physically broken by COVID, and that is not something we were ever led to believe could happen.
Well, Stacey joins us now in the studio. And Stacey, many people will be shocked really at the impact that COVID can have.
It's been devastating, and it's been a really emotional journey doing this series, because I've been shocked by not only how severely these children are affected, but the scale of the problem. When we first started, we were literally inundated by families desperate to tell their story, because these children were once fit, active, healthy youngsters who now can't get out of bed. Many haven't been able to get out of bed for 2 years. And nobody sees these children because they're not in school and they're not in hospitals. So these families feel completely forgotten, and they're desperate for more treatment options.
And it is, I know, a subject that's very personal to you.
It is, because my 12-year-old son has long COVID. He first got infected back in October 21, a mild infection. He recovered very quickly. He then got it again in January 22, and he has never recovered. He has terrible joint pain, he has chronic fatigue, he has gastro issues, it's affected his heart. And just like all the other families in this series that I've spoken to, we struggled to get any help. I went to the GP 5 times. The 6th time he was admitted to A&E, but they couldn't help. They referred us to the long COVID clinic, but I waited 13 months for that appointment. So I know only too well how devastating this illness can be.
Stacey, the children, they weren't vaccinated, were they?
No, none of the children that I have interviewed were vaccinated. My son wasn't vaccinated because vaccines weren't offered to children at that time.
And Stacey, this is, of course, the start of a special series, more to come this week.
Yes, tomorrow night we hear from more children who are affected. One 14-year-old boy who has been bedbound for more than 2 years. And tomorrow night I will be doing a live Facebook chat with Dr. Benita Kane, whose daughter has also been affected, and she will be offering help, advice and support. So we would love to hear people's questions. 6:40 tomorrow after the programme, so do get in touch.
Stacey, we have to leave it there, but thank you for now. And there is more on Stacey's reports on our website, including more on her personal experience of long COVID. That's at itv.com/Meridian.
More news now, and a father of 4 who fatally hit a 24-year-old man with a metal horseshoe at Reading train station told a court today he didn't intend to kill anyone. Kirkpatrick Virgo, who's 42, said he'd bought the horseshoe from an antique shop and he was carrying it as a lucky charm. Well, Thomas Parker had been on a train home from London with his brother when a row erupted with a group of men over loud music. It continued on the station platform when the groups disembarked, and the jury was shown CCTV footage of the moment Thomas was struck on the head. Virgo, seen here in the purple T-shirt, told the court he regrets what happened every day of his life. He admits manslaughter and possession of an offensive weapon, but denies murder. The trial at Reading Crown Court continues.
A 15-year-old boy has appeared in court charged with murdering an 18-year-old man in Swindon. Owen Dunn was stabbed in the Hayden End area on December the 4th last year. The teenager from Swindon appeared at Magistrates Court and has been remanded into youth detention. 2 other teenagers, aged 14 and 17, have previously been charged with murder.
The family of a grandmother from Aldershot killed when she was struck by a car say their despair is beyond imagination. Bishnu Mayor Bachachan, who was 71, suffered serious injuries on Hospital Hill a week ago. Well, she died in hospital the next day.
Today is the 60th anniversary of the publication of the Beeching report. It led to the closure of railway stations and lines, including Hermitage Station in Berkshire and Wantage and Abingdon in Oxfordshire. More than 60 stations were closed in Oxfordshire alone.
Well, some lines are reopening, like the Cowley branch line, following a campaign. Beeching's name is now synonymous with cuts to the rail network. However, some say his recommendations were necessary. With more on this, here's Kevin Ashford.
To many, he was known as the most hated civil servant in the country. 6 decades ago, Dr. Richard Beeching drew up a report called The Reshaping of British Railways, which led to the closure of thousands of miles of lines and stations across the country. The Cowley branch line in Oxford was one of them. It currently only carries freight, but the line is due to reopen to passengers following a long campaign.
This is a major employment area. We have Oxford Science Park, which will have its own station called Oxford South, and we have the area around the mini factory in Cowley, where the station will be called Oxford East. So people will be able to travel to the many employment prospects around there by train, leave their cars at home, and that benefits everybody because traffic conditions in Oxford are only going to get worse.
In the 20 years after the Beeching report, more than 2,300 train stations and 5,000 miles of lines were closed as the government tried to find a way of making railways adapt to a changing world.
And the reason Beeching was brought in to write his report 60 years ago was because the rail industry at the time was in a fairly parlous state. Car ownership was booming, taking people off the trains, and freight was switching from rail to road.
Overall, I think he helped save the railway. Had Beeching not been appointed and not come up with a strategic plan to prune the system down to a manageable level, where losses were reduced, there could have been far more closures, far more losses in the 60s.
The chair of today's Network Rail says the modern rail system owes a lot to Beeching.
It was his vision to speed up intercity travel, make it attractive, make it compete with the journeys that you could make on the motorways that are then being built. And actually that was at the cost of closing a lot of relatively small stations with relatively low numbers of passengers. And as I said, he wasn't always right, but we've made some amends in the last 60 years, and currently the government has a programme of reopening lines where there are significant populations.
Environmental concerns weren't a factor for Beeching, but modern-day campaigners like this climate charity say they must be today.
When you've got forms of transport that are so highly polluting, like cars contributing to public health issues like fatal asthma and air quality issues, I think that it's a really important discussion to be had, because to fight climate change, we need to have an affordable, accessible, reliable rail network that works for everyone.
The world and the trains may have changed over the last 6 decades, but the rail network is still feeling the effect of the words of Dr. Richard Beeching. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
Now you're watching ITV News Meridian, still to come.
Swindon's playoff hopes have been dealt a blow. Landry will be hit with all the sport.
And it may have been a quiet day weather-wise today, but for the rest of the week, I think you might want one of these handy. I'll be back later with the full forecast.
And for more news from around the Thames Valley, you can go to our website. itv.com/meridian is the address. 0808 1010 095 is our phone number. And as ever, you can follow us on social media.
Now, a crackdown on graffiti, more powers for the police to test for drugs, and a ban on nitrous oxide, all announced by the Prime Minister in South Essex today.
Well, Rishi Sunak said that graffiti is a blight on communities and wants to see it cleaned up within 48 hours. He wants to see laughing gas or nitrous oxide banned. It's become a common drug with capsules littering streets. And he wants an increased police presence to make people feel safer.
But some feel the measures are not enough to stop antisocial behaviour. With more on this, here's Abigail Bracken, who's reporting from Brighton.
It's not hard to find graffiti in Brighton, and stopping it is part of the government's latest crackdown on antisocial behaviour, along with giving more powers to the police to test for drugs, police that were joined by the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in Essex this morning.
This plan is how we are going to stamp out antisocial behaviour. It's how we're going to level up across our country, and most importantly, it's how we're going to build strong and thriving communities.
Under the new measures, anyone caught painting graffiti could be forced to remove it themselves within as little as 48 hours or paint over it like you can see here. And while they're doing it, they might have to wear a high-vis vest or a jumpsuit. And these plans for immediate justice will be trialled in Sussex.
It could be a bit of swift justice in as much as they go clearing up some graffiti, or they'll have to repair some of the damage that they cause. And I think this is really good news because it allows communities to see that damage being repaired immediately.
Can't have kids taking over the streets. They're not in charge, we are. So get on and do it.
It's kind of demonising a certain section of society, really. We need to be a tolerant society. It's actually catching them doing what they're doing. So how enforced it will be quite difficult.
I think it's a good thing, but I hope it doesn't stop some of the artistic graffiti as well.
The Labour Party says the government's plans are empty rhetoric, that we need more police on the streets. And a drugs charity says banning nitrous oxide, which has led to 45 deaths over 10 years, is not the right policy.
Criminalising tens of thousands of young people can seriously damage their life chances, where there's no evidence that it will actually deter people from using these drugs.
So the trials for immediate justice in Sussex will start next year, which the government hopes will tackle antisocial behaviour on our streets. Abigail Bracken, ITV News, Brighton.
Well, the national and international news continues after us at 6:30. For detail on that, here's Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the programme, Scotland's new leader.
I therefore declare Hamza Youssef duly elected as the Scottish National Party leader.
Hamza Youssef wins a narrow leadership election and will become First Minister. But with the cost of living crisis, the NHS under pressure and controversy over gender reforms all in his entree, where does it leave the fight for independence? Also on the programme, our investigation reveals the landlords being paid millions to provide shocking housing conditions like this. Plus,
what's your message to the British press?
Prince Harry back in the UK as his court case against the publishers of the Daily Mail begins. Would you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
But before that, let's talk about sport. Andrew's with us in the studio. Andrew, could Portsmouth still grab a playoff place?
Definitely.
Are we saying it out loud?
Definitely, the race is on. Well, that's according to the manager, John Messino, who says the playoffs are still very much alive after his side pulled off a fantastic comeback to grab an important point in their late push for the top six. And it's Fratton Park where we begin our roundup.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
A painful first half for Pompey fans saw their side go 2 goals down and miss a penalty. But after the break, Colby Bishop made amends by slotting home his second spot kick, and Michael Jacobs rescued a point just 3 minutes later. Boss Messino saying his side can make it to the playoffs with 8 games to go. In League Two, Swindon's playoff hopes were dealt a blow when Jacob Wakeling was sent off in the first minute after giving away a penalty. They were relieved to see Sol Bryn save Paddy Madden's effort, but in the 80th minute, 10 men Swindon succumbed. The Robins now 10 points off the last playoff place. It was all hugs and happiness for Crawley Town's manager Scott Lindsay after his side made it 3 wins out of 4. Dom Telford with the opener in front of a bumper crowd of nearly 5,000 after tickets were reduced to £2. The supporters delighted to see Crawley beat bottom place Rochdale, with Dion Conroy lifting the team 4 points above the drop zone and with a game in hand.
Now, peregrine falcons nesting at Salisbury Cathedral have welcomed another egg. Well, it is nearly Easter, isn't it? On Friday evening, the female laid her 4th egg. Cathedral staff say it's now a countdown until they hatch. Well, a pair of breeding falcons have returned to the cathedral each year since 2014, with thousands tuning in online to watch a live stream. It is beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, but I'll raise you from that story this. A care home in Southampton has adopted 2 piglets to help a new resident who used to be a farmer to settle in. 81-year-old Tony Alford moved to Knightsgrove Bupa Care Home in December. He lived on a farm for most of his life and staff wanted him to feel more at home.
Oh, they are beautiful, aren't they? You could have some piglets.
Yeah.
Maybe why not? Oh, go on, have something. Well, let's follow what the weather has in store. Philippa is next with all your details.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent boilers and heat pumps,
sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Hello there. Well, it certainly has been a very quiet start to the week weather-wise, but the next few days don't look quite so promising. A good deal of unsettled weather, showers or longer spells of rain, some windy conditions at times, but also quite mild, especially so through the middle part of the week. And this is why. So high pressure has been clinging on out towards the east today, but it will soon start to drift away, and in its place low pressure will take over, pushing fronts our way, bringing spells of rain. And in particular, we've got our eye on this area of low pressure running through southern coastal counties on Friday. That could bring some strong, perhaps gale force winds to the south coast. But out there at the moment, still looking relatively quiet. A good deal of dry weather on the scene, some clear spells to start the night, so an early dip in temperatures. But as the night wears on, the cloud thickens, the wind picks up, and by the end of the night, I think for all of us, we'll be hovering between around 4 and 6 degrees Celsius. Now out towards the west, we will see some rain moving in first thing tomorrow. That will then work its way eastwards across all parts through the first half of the day. So a very different start to today, much cloudier, much wetter, and the wind stronger from the word go as well. Signs of improvement in terms of the rain easing off into the afternoon, but it will stay rather grey and cloudy, and temperatures will be a bit of a struggle. High tides tomorrow, 4 in the morning for Southampton, 4:30 in the afternoon, and confirmation then of unsettled weather still to come.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
And that is it from us for this evening. In just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale tonight.
And you're back later, aren't you? So join Matt a little bit later on, but that's all we have time for this evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow. For all of us here, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.